when an ending is actually a beginning. Mary Magdalene, on the way to the tomb on that first Easter, thought that she was in the midst of an ending. The woman had gone to the tomb to care for the body of the dead Jesus. It would be a time to remember. It was an ending. Life is full of many endings and beginnings. Life is a session of losses. For Jesus, it was the same. Eating at a table with those who would betray him and abandon him, an ending. Facing death, a redemptive death, but an unjust death, an ending. Feeling the strength and the life and the breath leave his body at the place of the skull, an ending. In our lives, there are many Good Fridays. You can probably make a list of Good Fridays in your own life. Days when you felt forsaken, endings. Days when you were strengthened in life and the breath seemed to be leaving your bodies, ending. And when you were betrayed and you were wrestling about forgiveness, endings. And yet Easter reminds us what life looks like with an ending. But it can actually is just a beginning. Early in the morning, Mary came to the tomb. The body is missing. She thinks it has been stolen. She runs to tell Peter and John, and they run back. John goes into the tomb, and it is empty. He sees and he believes. It is like a new beginning. Mary is standing outside the tomb. For her, this is an ending. That something had happened, didn't it? Two of us can be close together, near the same situation. One hearing a beginning, another one seeing an ending. Then she hears a voice, a message. Woman, why are you weeping? They've stolen the body, she said. He is missing. And now we come to the heart of the story. We know something that Mary doesn't know. Have you ever heard or listened to someone, maybe a child, maybe a friend, and they're just describing a situation and it seems like it's an ending, but you know that it's not? It's actually a beginning. We know the story here. She thinks she's talking with the gardener. Isn't it amazing how God comes to us through ordinary people? God's grace never comes to us in the abstract, but comes to us through ordinary, normal people. She explains that the body has been stolen. He looks at her and says, Mary, and it is Jesus. And she says, teacher. And she goes to announce to the others, I have seen the Lord. What looks like an ending is actually a beginning. That is our Easter faith. Easter faith makes us aware of the one who is with us, even when we mistakenly assume that we are alone. Easter faith is built upon a foundation of the one who rolled away the stone, even when we are at the end of our own strength and effort. Easter faith is rooted in the one who continually teaches us, if we have ears to hear and eyes to see, that endings can be beginnings. Easter faith gives birth to resurrection living, doubt as a way to belief, mourning as a way to dancing, despair as a way to hope, and death as a way to life. Easter faith is about glory and victory, but it's also about fear and uncertainty. Have you ever experienced when watching a movie and you think that it's all over, all the ties have been tied together and you think it's the end? It may not be the way that you like the ending, but it's still done. But wait a minute, there's a surprise. On Good Friday, even Jesus said, it is finished. And maybe those who were listening were thinking, it's all over. Let's just go home. It's done. It looks like an ending. Maybe you are here today because you're here because it's Sunday. Or maybe you're here because it is Easter and you want to celebrate the risen Lord. Or maybe you're here because you have come to an ending. Endings are about obstacles in our lives. Sometimes holding on to the past is an obstacle. Sometimes not seeing the holy in the ordinary is an obstacle. Sometimes being afraid is an obstacle. Sometimes doing it all yourself in your own strength is an obstacle. And sometimes avoiding the tomb is an obstacle. In life, there is endings. We reach an obstacle and it seems to be over. But what looks like an ending when seen through the eyes of our Easter faith is always a beginning. Easter is always about overcoming obstacles. Overcoming obstacles is the great theme of the Bible. Abraham and Sarah are too old. It looks like an ending. And God speaks to them and says, I am going to give you a child. And from you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. What looks like an ending is actually a beginning. Moses had obeyed God and led the people out of slavery under the Pharaoh. He finds himself at the edge of the water of the sea. It looks like an ending. And God speaks and says, stretch out your hands and divide the sea, and you will pass through the water on dry ground. And they crossed the Red Sea to safety. What looked like an ending is actually a beginning. Israel has suffered in exile. They had been driven away from their land, their temple destroyed. It looked like an ending. And God speaks and says through the prophet Isaiah, comfort, oh comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and cry to her that she has served her term and that her penalty is paid. What looks like an ending is actually a beginning. In the early morning, the darkness is just giving way to daybreak, and Mary is weeping. It looks like an ending, and someone speaks and says, woman, why are you weeping? Who are you looking for? And then someone speaks and says, Mary. God says her name. God always says our name. And she tells the disciples, I have seen the Lord. What looks like an ending is an actual beginning. In the early morning, the darkness gives way to daybreak. The disciples of Jesus knows this hour. Maybe you're here because you are at an ending. Maybe there's an obstacle in front of you that seems insurmountable. Maybe you're weeping. Easter is about endings and beginnings. Easter is about obstacles and the power of God to overcome them. Endings of beginnings. In the world, you face persecution. Take courage. I have conquered the world. Endings of beginnings. I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Ending or beginning. All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. I am with you always to the ends of ages. There's a parable about 3 trees in the forest and pray about the ultimate destination. Ending or beginning. One tree wants to be in a magnificent building. Instead, it was cut down and used for a trough in a stable in Bethlehem, ending or beginning. The second tree wanted to be used in construction of a great merchant ship. Instead, the tree was cut down, used to build a small fishing boat to sail in the seas of Galilee. Ending or beginning, the third tree wanted to point people to God. This tree wanted to stay in the forest. Instead, it was cut down and made into a cross. Our hopes are in the future that is unrevealed until its season. Sometimes God alone can only see. Sometimes God alone can see us. Sometimes, especially at Easter, what looks like an ending is actually a new beginning. Shalom and amen.